Hey, White Sox fans, guess what? Oh man, it's a good podcast. How about that? It's good to have a happy podcast every once in a while. This is number 32 of 2022. I am joined on this happy podcast by two of my very favorite Southside Sox writers. Of course, it's Chrystal, who keeps you rarely misses one. Jacki Krestel just recapped the sweep tonight. Another great recap from her. Terrific read. If you haven't read it, hey, wait, it's a day after the recap was published. If you haven't read it already, go back right now, read that thing. Come on, another great piece of work from Jacki. Okay, well, boy, guess you didn't expect this was going to happen. A sweep in San Francisco against a pretty tough San Francisco Giants team. What in the world is going on? I guess a couple weeks ago, I want to say it was roughly a couple of weeks ago, sweep in Detroit, like, okay, yeah, but it's Detroit. All right, well, this is a step up. But again, let's just kick this off. What's different? What's feeling different about this one?
Well, to be fair, today was a bullpen game for the Giants, but it was still an exciting game.
And Chrystal, also to be fair, every game for Detroit is a bullpen game. But all right, just feel I need to throw that out there. But yeah,
that's fair.
Good point.
But it seemed like everybody was actually kind of like awake and having fun. And despite Jake Burger being missing until the very end of this game, that just occurred, it was kind of weird. But like when Lurie Garcia is single-handedly manhandling the Giants, it feels like it's Bizarro world. But they did great, and it was just really fun to actually see some offense and a team that might score more or might get more errors than us and just play poor defense. So that was fun.
Yeah, you can just see San Francisco like making notes. Okay, Lurie Garcia, when he's available, we got to get him. Jacki, you recapped this like nothing bullpen game sweep, whatever in San Francisco, but then also were on coverage for us yesterday as well. So you're close to this series. What's different? What's feeling different?
One thing that I noticed is that Tony La Russa has gone back to what I would say are the EPA standard exposure levels of wacky. Meaning, I'm not going to agree with everything that he does, but there's been no walking someone on a 1 and 2 count. I haven't noticed any of that on this trip. He handled the bullpen well, didn't he? He did a good job. So maybe that's what's different, is the fucking manager is doing his job a little bit.
Tony, stay out of the way, please. Yeah.
Get out of our way. He handled the bullpen well. That was nice to see. Give props when props are due.
And I'll go right back to you, although Chrystal jump in too. Go right back to you, Jacki, because one of the questions in your recap is Gio back? Now, obviously had a terrible June, and we're all like, wait, that was our ace. What is going on with the guy? I understand that's knee-jerk stuff, but I mean, you start stringing awful starts, you're losing velocity, you got no feel for your pitches, and even he's sort of like, oh yeah, I'm not really sure what's going on. Now, that's cause for concern. This was a nice start, and he did what he needed to do, even if this wasn't such a clean start, just by getting through 6, just by eating some innings.
No, Lucas looked great today. As I said in my recap, it's too early for me to say that Lucas is going to go back to full, complete return to form. But it is encouraging to see his last 2 starts were quality starts. As we all know, June 22, Lucas Giolito, worst pitcher in baseball. So there was nowhere to go but up, but he looks good. I'm encouraged by him. He's going to find his way. Yeah. He's a good kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I mean, 2 starts is kind of rough to just go in and say, oh yeah, he's definitely back. But he looked a lot more comfortable and a lot more confident. And I'm hoping he's finally like healthy, because I really think part of that struggle was his health and just not fully bouncing back from, COVID. So it looked promising. And like Jacki said, you can really only go up when you have reached rock bottom in pitching.
And he seemed, I won't necessarily say pitching angry, but he had some fire. I mean, you can't get more fired than 7 strikeouts to start the game. And, again, when the biographies are written of the 2022 World Series champion White Sox, we'll learn why it took them till the end of June to maybe start getting angry and break open a can of whoop ass on some teams in the league. But if this is some sort of turning point, it'll be sort of interesting to know why it took a while, or maybe Tony just needed to, as Jacki implied, just sort of get out of the way. Go back to the EPA standards. Let's go back to the proper gas mileage, Tony, which means just nap. You can nap. Spend some time catching up on some D's. Hey, we cannot talk about this series without talking about June pitcher of the month. He of 1 earned run in June and 1 earned run in that lousy start he just had on Saturday, slacker. Dylan Cease. This is a guy that people have been sort of saying like, or, the pro Cease guys have been like, just wait, man, this guy's going to be like a Cy Young winner. And most of the rest of us, I'll say the rest of us, because I was a little bit, more of a doubter, just like, okay, it doesn't mean he can't be a decent 3-4 starter or whatever. But okay, Cy Young, the guy's got to become slightly more efficient, and he still isn't terribly efficient. It's just, boy, the strikeout pitches, the confidence, the fact that very rarely does he take himself out of a game. He has really been the White Sox stopper via injury or via the fact he just didn't have a full rotation to begin the season. Thank you, Rick Hahn. But Dylan Cease has really been like the guy that the White Sox can really count on. Getting the monthly honor, the first of his career, is certainly, deserved, and a really cool thing for him. But, I think he's setting the season up for maybe some end of the year consideration. And it's such a relief for us as fans, but it's just been really a joy to watch, because for the first half of the season, there haven't been all that many rotation highlights, and he has been one pretty much for 16 starts.
I agree. He's had a standout season so far. Oh, sorry, Jacki. Her faces. No, he's had a great season. I've been really impressed with what he's been doing. I didn't really have that on my bingo card for Dylan Cease to be the most ace-like in June 2022, but he's dominated and he really deserves it. I wouldn't say Cy Young potential, but I would say there's no reason he shouldn't be going to the All-Star game. There is no reason he shouldn't have had this honor. Like he's been lights out. I guess he can never shave the mustache.
Or get the second booster, but whatever. All right. Different issues and a different podcast. Jacki, what you seeing from Cease?
He's the only pitcher in the rotation. I'll take that back. There are 2 pitchers in the rotation where I don't worry about that game prior to the game, and it's Johnny Cueto, funnily enough, and it's Dylan Cease, because I know that we're going to be there, or they have been there. They're the only 2 that I don't worry about the game. If we lose, we're probably going to lose it by the offense, not by them.
The debate we've had in the last, well, maybe all year, but certainly more recently when we've been trying to look for something to get excited about this team, is there some momentum? Again, just whatever it was a few weeks ago with the Detroit sweep. Okay, are the White Sox back? Has been, okay, where are we going to see the improvement necessary to turn this team at least a bit upside down and become a team that maybe can go 10 over 500, or maybe it's going to have to be 15 or 20 over 500 to get into the playoffs and win the division. And, we've picked it down to the point where we've almost gone through everybody on the roster, say, okay, who has room for improvement? And what seems to be a only slightly popular notion that I put out there is that, the rotation is where a lot of those gains can still be had, even though that's been, I guess, a little less unseemly. You see some of those OPSs in the lineup and you think, how is this a major league team? But really, when you look at the WAR, depending on who which site you're choosing, the pitchers have been actually, even weaker than the offense. What we saw this weekend, I think, with this rotation, without even Johnny Cueto pitching, just taking the standing ovation there back in San Francisco, is this rotation, Kopech's availability pending, really every night can give you a stopper effort. Even Johnny Cueto, which, no diss on Johnny, he really has been, as Jacki said, sort of our number 2. And something that we talk about not expected this season. But the idea that you can run a guy out no matter 1 through 5 in the rotation and really perhaps anticipate a stopper outing. And taking the heat off of the offense, which is not proven capable in spite of the fact that, what is it, 4 or 5 times this year now they've scored double figure runs. Great. But we would have thought more, especially how the season started with the White Sox, just taking a little bit of the pressure off of that offense, making them score just maybe that 5 or 4, or sometimes even 3 runs to get a win or be in the ball game. That I think is going to help. It's sort of a dog chasing the tail here, but I mean, I think I can help get the offense sort of back into things, knowing, all right, we're not going to have to score 8 to win because we got a lousy rotation. Every one of these guys is capable of, 6 shutout innings. Do you think that can have that kind of effect on the offense, where maybe they can take a breath and say, okay, maybe Gavin Sheets realizes maybe the pressures, and he comes back from Charlotte. No, he's the best hitter on the team.
Yeah, I don't know there, Brett. um, no, I think I don't know that it affects the offense at all to see the pitchers do well or not. I mean, hitters are going to hit, pitchers are going to pitch. But it is funny how it sometimes just seems to, like, if one is on, then the other is off, So if we could just regulate that, that would be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't warn you guys that there was going to be math or an essay question that didn't make sense. But anyway, this isn't the SAT. We'll move on to our break quickly. Let's get out of the way. We'll be back in a minute to perhaps, who knows, maybe more word problems. It could be. It's host's choice, so we'll see what I come up with. Second half, hang out with us. Hey, White Sox fans, guess what? Podcast 32. Yeah, 32 of them. And this is a happy one. We have not had 32 happy podcasts this year. Maybe 2, but maybe the rest of them, the rest of the way, the next 22 will all be happy ones. Who knows? It could happen. It was a pretty happy weekend, and we are celebrating, and thank you for taking time out to celebrate along with us, taking time out of your Independence Day. More on that at the end of the podcast. With this podcast, joining me, Chrystal O'Keefe and Jacki Krestel, neither of whom want to solve my word problems, and that's perfectly okay. So let's move on to a more straightforward issue, and that is the Minnesota Twins. First place, been in first place. I want to say for the balance of this year, they've pretty much been holding first. Cleveland nibbling at them a little bit. Cleveland's still very formidable in front of the White Sox in second place. It is a 3-team race in the AL Central. These are the opportunities the White Sox have been waiting to get another chance at. I believe it's 17, 19, whatever. It's basically all of July playing AL Central teams. And the good news is a couple of those teams are really crappy. So those hopefully are wins in the pocket. We'll see. That's another podcast as well. But Minnesota's in front of us, playing well enough. What do you see at home? This is an opportunity the White Sox, you think, have been spoiling from. We heard Lance Lynn after the game, I think today, saying, it's not just about getting to 500. It's now continuing to press the accelerator. Let's just mow through Minnesota. Is that likely? Is this momentum the White Sox can take back home and take at least a 2 out of 3, if not maybe push a sweep on Minnesota and really put this first place team on their heels?
They might win a game, but I just see Byron Buxton wiping the floor with this entire team, because he's on another level right now. Like there's no one right now I can compare him to. He's been so good that I struggle to see them. Oh my gosh, these fireworks. I struggle to see him really not be great against the White Sox. I don't think they're going to pull it out against him. He could be the only batter on that team, and I feel like the Twins would still win.
South Sox fans, I apologize. I promised you a happy podcast. It just took a turn, but it's honest. And it's Crystal's, it's her assessment, and it's fair. Jacki, can you shed just a little bit more sunshine as the fireworks pop off around you on what you anticipate to be, at least optimism toward this series?
You know what? I think momentum is a real thing. I believe in it. And so I think we are going to know, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think we're going to know how the rest of July is going to go by tomorrow. We'll see or today.
Interesting.
See what happens today.
Yes, we're time traveling. Yes, we are. We're just mere minutes away from the game, Jacki. Remember, we've already seen the lineups.
When will then be now?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Soon. Okay. But we're going to know by today how the whole thing's going to go, because momentum is real. And if we can carry this weekend sweep into a win against Minnesota on the 4th of July, I'm going on a limb that we're going to win most of our next 19 games if we can win tomorrow.
Okay,
If
now
we don't do it for Captain Polly, then it's a wasted effort.
now, Jacki, again, Krestel's been just a little more straightforward. And you know, it wasn't that many days ago that she predicted, I think she assessed the White Sox as a 42-win team. So listen, she has been down on this team, and rightfully so. She's not wrong. But tell me this, be honest. Okay, so say the White Sox lose tonight. Okay. But we're calling you back in a couple weeks, and maybe things, okay, say the team maybe is still just sort of meandering, but the opportunities are still there. You're going to find a way to convince yourself to maybe say the same thing in a couple weeks, correct?
Yeah, I might do that, but then look out for at the end of the season. Do you remember when I said this? I was right about that.
That's fair. That's fair. All right. In spite of, okay, let's say debatable optimism coming out of this sweep and what turned out to be actually sort of a decent road trip, you can't really argue with it because it could have gone a lot more south than it did. In spite of the presumed optimism going into, again, 600 games against the AL Central in a row, are there, give me a concern each of you have, in spite of the fact that, listen, San Francisco tried to hand 3 games to the White Sox, and they largely did, but it's not like the White Sox didn't do anything. The rotation was terrific. The hitting was timely enough. Obviously, they thumped very badly, thanks also to some defensive lapses as well. But, it wasn't like they just gave the games up. White Sox played well. Reason for optimism, O'Keefe aside. But yet, what are still some concerns? Obviously, a guy like Moncada is still struggling, but I mean, what jumps out as things that still sort of nag at you, even though we should be feeling, potentially really good?
Well, you said my answer was Yohan just not hitting the ball. He's playing on third base and he's doing great at that, but he's not hitting for anything. And it seems like AJ's kind of streaky again. So I'm just concerned about these guys that are known hitters that are suddenly not hitting the ball again. And you've got Leary, I don't know, it's going to be like home runs every day. Also, the lack of home runs. There were 17 hits in this series, and none of them. I mean, where are the home runs?
Yeah. The rest of the league knows something the White Sox don't know, it seems, because, I know we're in the dead ball era, but boy, this is a really dead ball for the White Sox. Jacki, maybe aside from what Krestel just threw out there, concerns you're having even going into what should be an optimistic series in Minnesota?
My concern now, before then, in the future, for the rest of time, is health. I mean, I can't, I don't know how many more injuries she can take.
Yeah.
So that is my concern going into that. And then I'm just going to speak on behalf of Trooper, who wanted us to talk about this in the podcast. Trooper Galactus said that somebody needs to sound the alarm on Pollock because he's terrible.
Well, okay, it's notable that there's a concern from Trooper. Even in flying in the face of a sweep in San Francisco. And, listen, nobody's going to deny that. I mean, this is a guy we hoped for a lot more from, and he hasn't really, he's playing left field and Leoria Garcia is playing right field. There's something very odd about that picture. So, I think it was referred to, I think Krestel, you brought it up, but what happened to Jake Burger? What is going on with that? I mean, it's not as if Yohan Moncada is lighting up the batter's box. Obviously, he provides a very steady third base, and that counts on a team that has holes in the webbing of the glove the way the White Sox do. But to disappear.
Yeah, like
Almost completely.
why is he not even like pinch hitting in big situations? You're throwing out the most random dudes to pinch hit. Like, no offense, because Sebby has been
Yeah.
hitting, but no offense. Why are some of these players coming out still when you have Jake Berger just chilling on the bench, knowing that he can hit home runs? He's like the only one right now that's been able to do it. So, you didn't see him at all until the very end of the game, and he came in to pitch hit, and I mean, it didn't work, but still, that's what you also get that when he's just sitting on a bench for a week straight. He's going to lose it if he's not constantly up at bat. So I don't know. I assumed he was dead for a while, but I'm thankful that he's not.
Yeah. And we've remarked about the sort of lack of thump from this team. And, part of the hope is, Eloy perhaps, comes back sometime this week during the homestand and can provide some punch. But, that's no guarantee. There's nobody missing. Yasmani, you think is going to, finally, I don't know, be healthy and he's going to be able to put some power into it. But, these are not foregone conclusions. I don't think there's a whole lot out there. I mean, you sort of have to hope that production gets stepped up by guys like those two names, Yohan, really almost everybody on the team. You hope it's there. I'm not sure you can count on, anything just falling from the sky. Eloy he's been Eloy. He doesn't really give you defense. He hasn't always given, power. I don't think there's anybody racing in to rescue. It's really just going to have to be this team. It does seem like this year is going to be a matter of grinding out the offense. In spite of how it started, you just thought, oh my gosh, I think we even said on the podcast, okay, last year, the pitching staff carried the White Sox to first place. And then, I guess, everybody sort of ran out of gas at the end. Maybe this year they're paying them back and the offense is going to be the one saying, hey, we're going to give you 8 runs, do what you want. It's just easy W's for you. Well, that lasted about a week, 10 days. It does seem like this is going to be nail biting games and offense that is going to just be grinded out this year. There's not really going to be a lot of respite where we even saw on Sunday with the 17 hits and the 10, 12 runs. They're not going to be many of those games, right?
Right. There's not going to be many of those games. And I also wanted to comment on Jake Berger not being in the lineup. Is it personal? Did he break some unwritten rule of baseball and now has to sit? I think Chrystal wrote an article one time, is it a Horcrux or a blood oath? Or I just want to point that out. So yeah, don't know what's going on with Jake Berger.
Yeah.
But no, we're not going to score 13 runs a game very often. So,
no,
so the
Chrystal.
home runs would be nice.
Yeah, just sprinkle them in. I mean, and the Sox are going to have 7 in a game this homestand, and then no other game they're going to have. Come on, guys, let's it doesn't always have to be station to station. Chrystal, do you see somehow a more of an outburst than we're expecting from this offense, or is this offense going to just be giving us all gray hairs all year?
Both, I think. I think that, when Eloy does come back, he might not perform as he's expected to, how we kind of wanted him to, but I think he is one of those pieces that is kind of that glue to getting an offense back up and running. Lance Lynn came back and suddenly they were scoring runs. Johnny Cueto yells at them and suddenly they're scoring, all these runs. And I think he's just one of those other little puzzle pieces that kind of gets this offense to start going. Do I think that they're going to score more than 7 runs a game? Absolutely not. But I think it'll be a more positive outcome, but still keeping us super stressed because they will be close games. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I think he's going to come back and it's going to be good. I also have deja vu. I feel like I just said this last year, which I probably did. But yeah, I think he's going to allow a burst, but I still think it's going to be stressful no matter what, because that's just what this team is at this point.
The overall assessment, I assume, Chrystal, you've probably gotten a little bit sunnier on the team than the 42 victories predicted when you were in the process, I believe, of packing your bags to Citi Field, Shea Stadium, whatever it is now. But in both of your cases, how are you feeling about what the outcome is going to be for this team? Let's have just a gut check here. Is this going to be a playoff team? Are they going to make it at least enough of a race? So how do you see the rest of the season?
Again, it depends on what happens today. I think if we win today, that we're in the playoffs.
All right.
I'm throwing all of my eggs in that basket.
That's not even a magic 8 ball. That's just the coin flip. So yeah, okay. All right. You've said it, that you dodged the question, but you also said, hey, dude, I already told you, yes, it's what's happening tonight. That's my answer. Okay. So, okay. If they don't win, do you anticipate them having enough fight to be in this? Are they going to basically be within 5 this year? Or do you think it's in this team to really bottom out?
Nope. I think they crumble.
Wow. This is
I'm
pressure.
going all the way out there.
Well, it's too late to tell you, but White Sox, stop listening. This is too much pressure on you. Please shut it off now. Pause. Come back to it after you won tonight. Okay. Come back then. Listen to more of what Jacki has to say, because really it turned out to be a pep talk for you. Chrystal, okay. It was 42 wins. Where are we at now?
I think if they can win 2 out of 3 against the Twins this series, I feel more confident. Maybe it's a wild card spot, which I feel like that's the most realistic outcome at this point. And they'll just have this kind of weird streak of luck. I don't see them going deep in the playoffs, but I think that they have enough in them to where they can at least get to that point if they have a decent series against these really tough Twins and Byron Buxton just doing what he does best.
I think we've identified Crystal's favorite player on the Minnesota Twins, although it's tough
He's
to say
my
favorite
crux.
Player. It's hard to say favorite Minnesota Twin. That is sort of a gross feeling, but listen, I empathize with the conflict. I mean, that's rough, Chrystal. I'm sorry. Well, maybe he can have a good series and the White Sox can still sweep. It seems unlikely, but we can hope for happy outcomes for everyone.
It's like what the Angels do. They have Shohei and they have Mike Trout.
Yeah.
And they still lose. So maybe this will just be a Byron Buxton has a great game, but they still lose.
We all rooted for Yermin to have like the home run once the game, was sort of, I guess, for a while there, it didn't actually seem in the bag there, but we all, come on, give the guy, better yet on a 3-0 count, but all right, didn't happen, just a double. Way to go, Yermin. Sorry. Hope your travel back to Sacramento is safe and healthy and happy. Okay. Well, a little editorializing to wind up. I have 2 guests who are welcome to chime in, but there's no obligation for them to. We are returning a little bit to what was acknowledged in, I believe, our last podcast, which had to do with some of the so-called political content that we had on the day of the Supreme Court decision. We decided to vote a game thread that had nothing to do with baseball. And by and large, Southside Sox readers were pretty mature in handling that, as I would expect. There were, of course, some dissenters, both on social media and on the site, and that is fine. But I will implore you in the future, because this is going to come up again. We are not going to ignore the world in which we live and the things that some folks want to shoehorn into the political arena are not political at all. So what you are going to need to do in the future when stuff like this comes up, and we'll try not to be too in your face about it, is just simply to shut up. I'm not asking you to do that. I am telling you to shut up. I'm sorry to Mothership Vox and SB Nation if it means that you need to take a break from Southside Sox for a while when another black motorist is killed and the cops are threatening protesters, or when another crazy Supreme Court decision, I can't imagine a crazier one, but when another one comes up, that we feel obligated because it affects us all, and it very, very literally impacts a good half of our active staff here. We're not going to have nothing to say. When Sean Spicer throws out a first pitch in the minor leagues on a Pride night, we are absolutely going to feel terrible if we don't say something. That's the site you need to know that you're getting. And if you feel that you have a right, as I think was mentioned at least by one commenter, if you think that you have a right to not have politics or whatever you want to call it on your White Sox site, that's fine. And it's fine to believe that. But imagine if maybe you found that you no longer had rights to your own body autonomy. And imagine that the privilege that you're given to actually say, I'm upset about my right to a White Sox site being taken away from me. That's not going to fly here. It's not going to fly with me. And even if it was 30 other people on this site in our staff room yelling at me otherwise, I'm not sure it would necessarily move us. I suppose if it was 30-1, okay, I would listen, but I wouldn't feel good about it. So I do ask, you can feel how you want to feel. If you think you're going to lecture me or lecture a lot of the other people who, by the way, directly impacted by decisions like this Supreme Court 7-10 days ago, are the majority of people providing content right now to you on the site, including, oh, well, the entirety of this podcast. And that goes for off season as well, when I hand off to Hamster and she essentially takes over for most of the off season. This is what you're getting. It's only right for us to behave the way we have and will in the future. We've done this in the past for Black Lives Matter letter, along with a lot of other SB Nation sites. And again, the pushback's been mild, so this shouldn't be taken as a lecture. But for those of you who are upset or offended when politics, although by the way, this is not politics, when politics are intruding on your baseball site, you really are going to need to take a break from it. Because I don't want to hear it. You are going to need to be quiet about it because it's not going to go well. This is not a democracy here. For better or worse, I'm sorry. I get to act as the king, and I think I lean on a group of people who I can depend on to make the right decisions for this site. And it may not be a coincidence, but I think they generally feel a lot of the ways I do. So we don't often end our newscast with this sort of editorializing, but it seemed appropriate, especially on a day we're all supposed to be able to enjoy our independence. And there's going to be a ton of ugly hats on the baseball diamond, and there might be flyovers, and Lord knows there will be bombs bursting in air. But guess what? Not everybody gets to feel good about Independence Day this year of all years. And you're going to have to respect that. If you don't, you're going to continue to have an issue with Southside Sox, and you are going to probably have to take some time away because we're not going to move here. So just to let you know, as always, we thank you for being faithful readers and participants in the site. Without you, we're not here. I don't want to just take up all the oxygen in the room, but I did want to get that out. And Chrystal and Jacki, I thank you so much for being here. You're very important members of this site, really crucial. Your output for us has been terrific, among the best we've ever had during my entire tenure. And I would argue that would go before my tenure here. And again, shout out to Billy OK for standing up in the comments on that day and pointing out, maybe this is just time to sit it out. Just for one day, could you please not give us your opinion and your feeling about something that means something very different to the majority of people out there? That might be a good signal to just pipe down, just be quiet. Nobody's asking you to change. Nobody's really even lecturing you. You're just going to have to respect some space here. And I think you can do it. If you can't, well, we're going to have a different discussion. It's not going to be on a podcast, but we will have a different discussion. Jacki, Chrystal, obviously, if there's anything you want to throw in, you are absolutely welcome to. Otherwise, I can put this podcast to sleep.
I will say thank you for that, first off. But there's always going to be politics in sports. I wrote this for a different site, so long as people are standing for the anthem, so long as God Bless America is being performed, there's always going to be politics. You've got former presidents throwing out the first pitch at baseball games. There's always going to be politics. And at the end of the day, 167 million people just lost their rights to bodily autonomy. And it's far deeper than just women complaining about this. I mean, it affects trans men. It affects people going in for IVF. It affects trans community in general, because that's a lot of their medication goes through that. So it's going to interrupt that process. Like it's a lot deeper than these people think it truly is. And it affects men because you might not have money to support that kid that your significant other, your, whoever, your one night stand is now being forced to give birth to. So, it goes deeper, and there's always going to be politics, and there's always going to be women writing in this field. So you're going to have to take some of it every once in a while. We have a voice, Jacki and I both, I feel like, use our platforms for pretty good. I know I am very opinionated, and I will constantly not just stick to sports. I will constantly voice my opinion on matters that affect my body. So, while everybody's out celebrating today and watching those fireworks and being forced to have those hideous hats on, even the Blue Jays, who aren't even from here, are forced to wear those ugly hats, just remember that maybe the woman or the trans person next to you does not give a shit about today anymore. Like we don't want to come to your birthday party anymore.
Yeah.
We just lost our rights and we're a little pissed.
Yeah. Jacki, don't want to squeeze you, but you're welcome to give a brief comment if you'd like.
I mean, I think you and Krestel pretty much covered it all.
Right.
So I'll say you here.
Well, I feel very lucky to have both of you with me on this site and producing the way you do. The work is extremely good, and the effort you're putting out for this site is the devotion is not overlooked, and I certainly hope it isn't overlooked by readership as well. Okay, to a completely, for no editorializing podcast, celebrating a sweep over the Minnesota Twins, which will be determined by tonight's action, according to recapper Jacki Krestel. Let's hope that's what we're going to be talking about later on this week. But when we come to you next, we will come to you next. Hopefully you'll be ready for us.